Hello, my dear students. Welcome to our new chapter, Discovering Tut, the Saga Continues, written by A.R. Williams. In this module, you will understand about the author of this story and you will infer the meanings of words from the context. This is the author of our story, A.R. Williams. A.R. Williams developed a love for reading at a very young age, and in the fourth grade, when an assignment to write down their own works of fiction was given, it occurred to him that he too could craft tales for others to enjoy. During a membership in a book club, AR discovered that there were books dedicated to teaching amateur writers more about the craft of writing. He snatched up a twin pack written by Phyllis Whitney. Soon after, AR scoured bookstore shelves, adding to his library and slowly learning different facets of what it took to be a writer. He started putting that knowledge to the test, crafting stories of the imagination in science fiction and fantasy genres. To improve his skills, A.R. Williams joined the science fiction and fantasy online writing workshop when it was still hosted by Del Rey. The critics he received and gave helped to further hone his developing talent. At this time, AR was writing more but not submitting his work to the markets. With the advancement of the internet and ability to find new markets from sites such as Relance and Duodrop's Digest, AR entered the field in a serious attempt to become a published author. So that's about the author. You come across some new words like amateur. Amateur writers means not so professional writers. Amateur, the word amateur means not so professional. And then another word is here, GENRES. Did you notice the pronunciation? Pronunciation is genre. That word is called genre. GENRES. It means the different types of written works like novel, stories, short stories, essays, articles. So that is genre, the different categories. Now, this is a story about discovering the facts about the death of a prince, an Egyptian prince. After many years of his death, he is taken from his tomb and again investigated to know the facts about the mystery about his death. Now, let's see what is happening in the story. Notice these expressions in the text, infer their meanings from the context. See, these expressions are new to you. So try inferring their meanings as you read the text. Forensic reconstruction, scudded across, casket grave, resurrection, funerary treasures, circumvented, computer tomography, eerie detail. Now let's start the lesson. He was just a teenager when he died, the last heir of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid to rest gold, laden with gold, and eventually forgotten. Since the discovery of his tomb in 1922, the modern world had speculated about what happened to him, with murder being the most extreme possibility. Now, leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut has undergone a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death and provides precise data for an accurate forensic reconstruction of the boyish pharaoh. So it's about a pharaoh of Egyptian king. His death had got some mysteries, so they had taken him from the tomb and then they are again doing the investigation. Let's see what is happening. An angry wind stirred up ghostly dust devils as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egypt cemetery known as the Valley of the Kings. Dark-bellied clouds had scudded across the desert sky all day and now were veiling the stars in the casket grey. in Cascade Grave. It was 6 p.m. on 5th January 2005. The world's most famous mummy glided head first into a CT scanner brought here to probe the lingering medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists from around the world had descended into the cramped, rock-cut tomb, some 26 feet underground, to pay their respects. They gazed at the murals of the walls of the burial chamber and peered at Tut's glided face. The most striking feature of his mummy-shaped outer coffin lid. Some visitors read from guidebooks in a whisper. Others stood silently, perhaps pondering Tut's untimely death in his late teens, or wondering with a shiver if the Pharaoh's curse, death or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him, was really true. The mummy is in very bad condition because of what Carter did in the 1920s, said Zahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, as he leaned over the body for a long first look. Howard Carter, that is, was the British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. Its contents, though hastily ransacked in antiquity, were surprisingly complete. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become part of Pharaoh's legend. Stunning artifacts in gold, their eternal brilliance meant to guarantee resurrection, caused a sensation at the time of the discovery, and still get the most attention. But Tut was also buried with everyday things he had wanted in the afterlife: board games, a bronze razor, linen undergarments, cases of food and wine. After months of carefully recording the Pharaoh's funerary treasures, Carter began investigating his three nested coffins. Opening the first, he found a shroud adorned with garlands of willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers, the faded evidence of a burial in March or April. When he finally reached the mummy, though, he ran into trouble. The ritual resins had hardened, cementing Tut to the bottom of his solid gold coffin. No amount of legitimate force could move them, Carter wrote later. What was to be done? The sun can beat down like a hammer this far south in Egypt, and Carter tried to use it to loosen the resins. For Sarah lovers, that's all for today. Uh, Now, these are the new words that we came across. Just have a look at it, read it thoroughly, try using this in sentences. Then you will be able to be familiar with these words. You will be able to add them to your vocabulary. It would be a very good addition to your vocabulary enhancement. These are all new words. There are so many new words in this chapter. You have to thoroughly understand the meaning of all these words and use it in your own daily conversations. Now, these are the self-check questions. Try answering them. Then we'll go to the overview of the paragraphs that we read today. Now let's see what the story was about. We just read the story. Now we'll see what the story is. We'll just have a cross check, a summary, an overview of the story. Tutankhamun, also known as Tut, was a teenager when he died. He was the last successor of his powerful Pharaoh dynasty which ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid on rest, heavily loaded with gold. His tomb was discovered in 1922, which made the world raise a question about what happened to him and whether he had been murdered. After almost 80 years, his body was about to undergo a CT scan, which would give new information and clues about his life and death. His face would be recreated with the help of a procedure called forensic reconstruction. A fast, strange, and unnatural wind was blowing as King Tut's body was taken from his grave called Valleys of the Kings, an ancient Egyptian cemetery. The location of the Valley of the Kings is given in the image in the next page of your textbook. Page number 24 of your textbook. Dark clouds moved quickly across the desert all day long, and later they covered the stars. On January 5, 2005 at 6 p.m., King Tut's mummy, which is the world's most famous mummy, was placed in the CT scanner to investigate the mystery behind his death, which had occurred more than 3,300 years ago. All afternoon, tourists visited the 26 feet deep underground rock cut tomb to pay respect to the king. Many people stuffed into the small tomb and looked in admiration at the murals on the walls of the chamber and took a look at the face of Tut that had been painted with gold. While visitors read the guidebooks in a hushed tone, some stood silently, wondering about his untimely death in his teen years. They might also be wondering if the curse of the Pharaoh, which leads to the descent of misfortune upon the person who disturbs him, is true. As Zahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, leaned over the body to have a look, he said that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what the British archaeologist Howard Carter did to it in 1920s. He discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922 after a long search. The valuable treasures of Tut had been explored earlier too, but well. Surprisingly, they were complete. The treasure found at Tut's grave is the richest till date and has come to be known as the Pharaoh's legend. It has artifacts in gold which are eternally beautiful and as good as new. Such artifacts still get our attention. Tut was buried with things of daily use like a razor made of bronze, games, linen undergarments, and boxes of food and wine which he could use in the next life. Carter took a few months to record the treasures found in Tut's grave. Then he began investigating his three coffins, which were nested one in another. The first coffin, he found a piece of cloth with garlands of willow, olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflower, which suggested that he had been buried in the months of March or April, because these are available only in March or April. These olive leaves, willow leaves, everything. When he reached the third coffin, he was in trouble. The body had hardened due to the resins which had cemented the body, and it had stuck to the bottom of the coffin, which was made of gold. The Carter wondered what to do next because no amount of force could separate the two. So that's about this. See his body. Zahi Hawass, the secretary of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Antiquities means the person who takes care of the ancient civilization, the things from the past civilizations. So he was telling that when he was examining the body, he was telling that this body was discovered first in 1920 by the British archaeologist Howard Carter, and when he was examining the body, he said that this was kept back in a very bad condition. He did not take care of the arranging it in a correct order and everything. So now it is in a very bad condition, he says. But actually, when Carter saw this body first, it was in three coffins, one inside the other, like that. Three coffins were there. The first one had a piece of cloth with garlands. Garlands means, do you know what is garland? It is a chain like thing. When we wear for the marriage and all, we wear the flower garlands, the bride and the groom, like that. These garlands were made of willow leaves. Willow is a kind of tree. From that leaves, the garlands were made, and then olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, cornflower, all these were used on the garland. And it suggested that this body was buried in months of March or April, because these are available. These leaves are available in March or April. But in the third coffin, the body had really stuck to it, cemented, because of the cements. It was really stuck. He could not take it. It was very hard. He could not take it out. So he was thinking what to do. So maybe that's why it got in a bad condition. When he was taking out this body from this, it became in a bad condition. That's all for today. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye bye.